Boudica, kill them all. Boudica, kill them all. Yeah, baby. I come prepared, Jesse. I have come prepared. I'm pumped up.
In the original script, it was Boudica, fuck them all.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
That lasted about 3 days trying to establish when swear words had their origins, and we found going back to the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah,
that's almost 1,000 years, and then beyond that, into Roman times, which swear words, English, Viking, Latin, might have been used then that would have been just the worst possible. Obviously, there's no record of Celt language. Right. They didn't write, so we don't have anything other than what the Romans wrote about them. 2 sources.
Right. Fuck them all would have been just as fun, though.
Yeah, I thought it'd be good. But Ariel, who's the producer, who's Ariel Bleiberg, who's Ehud Bleiberg's son, who's a producer on the film, is a history buff, and he drew the line in the sand and said we can't do that. It even if it were contemporary, it sounds so anachronistic that it'll pull it out of the movie. But I thought it was brilliant. And there was a form of fuck used as a swear word, not meaning procreation, that was used 2,000 years ago. That was that, and I was perfectly happy to use it. I mean, the Celts didn't speak English as we know it now. There wasn't any language as we know it now.
Yeah. Well, it still would have been fun if Fuck Them All made it.
I appreciate you mentioning that.
Has anyone else that has interviewed you about this film had an actual axe show up?
No, they haven't. And I felt like going to get the Boudica sword, which is in the other room, which I probably.
Oh my goodness! How is it far to get the sword?
I'll go get it.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're having fun here on PhatSamuraiGuy's channel. Yeah, baby. Yeah, we're gonna see the sword. We're gonna see the actual prop. That's how we do it. Yeah, having fun. Had to dust this off, man. I wanted to grab a sword, but I couldn't reach them right there. Let's check out the sword there.
So this that she uses in the film, and this is the torque. They're the only props I kept from the movie.
It was blow it up there. Can we see it again?
Absolutely.
Yes.
The reason for keeping them was not entirely greed driven. It was that when we shot in the UK, it was a really, really frantic shoot that was very, very difficult, and I knew that we were missing an immense amount of the film. So I grabbed a hold of absolutely everything that wasn't nailed down and brought it back to the US, where we did additional pickups in the woods here, which just in one of those really rainy California winters.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're familiar with Topanga Canyon and that sort of area, but when it rains, it looks like Ireland or England. It's not. It's very only lasts a couple of months, and it goes back to being very California looking. But we shot immense amounts of pickups and fighting in the US. There's just no other way to it. So I brought it back. The sword was crafted by a Lithuanian artisan, which I didn't know when I bought it. And it was right at the height of the fighting, and I paid for it and bought it in a and then received word from him after I paid for it that he was in, I think, Donbass or one of those places, and he said it'll take a little bit to get out of here because the post office is under fire at the moment.
Oh my goodness!
Not Lithuanian, and Ukrainian. I'm so sorry. And well, it actually arrived 2 days before filming. It was a monstrous endeavor to try and get it and track it. I was tracking it up to the day before it arrived, and it said it was still at the post office in the Ukraine.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Hey, whatever works, brother. Whatever works.
And to me, because Olga is Ukrainian as well, and the sword was Ukrainian, and there's a magical element to the whole thing, and I felt there was a lot of parallels between a small state fighting a huge, empire, and so it's quite interesting. I talked with Olga at length about this. She is obviously not wanting to state anything politically on it, but I know that it triggered some sort of recognition with her. But the idea for the bronze sword was, the bronze had, gone out of fashion 1,000 years before, the Bronze Age had ended long before AD 61, which is when our film was set. But the whole idea was that the sword came from the past, and it was in the past and all that sort of thing. And after it, but it actually retained this power that had been handed down, that sort of founded Boudica. It was sort of, I thought it was rather fun and rather interesting, really.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it's all about, having fun. Right.
The two
Yeah.
on one that they found that they think actually may have been Boudica's or another queen. It's enormously heavy, you know. Where
Oh wow, look at that. Yeah.
like that would mean you're a slave, and so you wore
Right.
show people you were no longer a slave. It was sort of like the
Right. Copy that.
whole origin of the open palm shake. You know, it's to show you have no weapon in your hand, or the salute, which lifts open your helmet. You know, showing
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks again for showing those props. This is awesome.
sort of
Exclusive here on the Movie Dojo podcast. We kind of jumped the gun a little bit. We got excited, but that's what it's all about. It's having fun here. But it's your boy Preston, Fat Samurai Guy, and welcoming back the legend himself, one of the greatest action directors going today, Jesse V. Johnson. Again, welcome back to the channel. We've had a lot of fun in the past talking Hell Hath No Fury, which is one of my favorite movies of that year it came out. White Elephant, we had a blast talking about that as well. But today, baby, we're talking about Boudica, Queen of War. And we're going to get to that. But before we get to that, what? That's right. Got the Blu-ray copy of One Ranger. Jesse, I love this movie, man. This is legit.
There's a really behind the scenes on that one as well. It's worth getting, you know.
Yeah, and it's got your commentary as well. Yeah. So everybody watching right now, all you action thriller crime fans out there, this is a must. This is a must. That's right. I highly recommend it.
You definitely get a lot of information.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved it, man. I really enjoyed it. I mean, Thomas Jane killed it. I mean, look at him. Look at the legend right there. Killed it. And the gunplay, the action sequences are so good. I enjoyed this actor in the film as well. I'm going to reach out.
He's tremendous. He's a walking tank, but he's awesome as an actor. He's very careful, very sensitive of the portrayal he's putting across, which is surprising because he's such a big, hefty-looking dude.
Yes.
Very sensitive, and he's very careful with his dialogue and wants to make the character as good as he can. I really enjoyed working with him. I'm going to work with him again, trying to find something for him.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to reach out to him in the future. I would love to talk movies on the show. And Dean did a great job playing the antagonist.
Superstar, man. He's going to be fantastic. It just needs the right material, right director.
Yeah.
Get out and do it. There's something about him that reeks of old Hollywood, you know, great classic pictures from the 60s and 70s. You know, it's not a merit-based business, and we got all these good-looking, sweet kids, you know, boys that are the sweetest, lovely fellas. And Dean's the real thing. He was a bare-knuckle fighter. He was a skateboarder. He's a very, very skilled actor. Takes it very, very seriously. You know, really, really understands the craft and wants to make it good. And he's the real thing. I hope that, you know, lightning strikes and somehow the moons align and he gets what he deserves. Hopefully, I'm involved in it. I'd love to be involved in it, but
for sure,
beyond my own personal, you know, ambitions, I hope he makes it because he's just really good to work with. And I've known him a long time, and I've watched him. I watched him in Warrior, the TV show. Have you seen him on that?
Oh, he's so good in Warrior. Yeah,
brilliant. Steals the show. I mean, and everyone's good on that. And just very good. His brother's a very talented director as well. And, you know, the two of them are, you know, poised to take over the town. And I hope they do. I really, really hope they do.
Oh, for sure. Dean, when I talk about him, I always bring up a film that not that many people have seen and know about, a film called Corbin Nash. Have you seen that? It's like a smaller, low budget vampire action movie. And he was great in that.
Passion project. And you know, I remember them going through it. They'd call me occasionally if they needed something. I don't think I helped out at all as much. You know, they managed it all. They had it all in control. But you know, anyone who goes out there and does it, as far as I'm concerned, you know, deserves some respect. It's the same in the fight game. Everyone talks about fighting and how they do that and how they do that and why does. But the guys that have actually been in the ring, that's something else. Those guys are, you know, and the same with making movies. Everyone wants to talk about it, but until you've done it and pulled it off and sold it and made a business of it, you know, or attempted to, you don't really understand it. And those have, and my hat is off to them. I think they're great.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, maybe you can direct them in Corbin Nash 2. Let's go.
There we go.
Let's go. Do you ever think about doing like an action horror film in the future?
I'm not especially drawn to it. I saw J.J. Perry, who's a friend of mine. I saw the film he did with Jamie Foxx.
Day Shift. Yeah.
It was so good, and I don't think I'd be able to do anything nearly as good as that. And it's like I have my area where I like to live. You know, I love
Yeah.
John Ford, Bud Boudica, Howard Hawks, you know,
Yeah.
man, those movies. And I want to, the way I see it, these pictures with that kind of message brought to the forefront, but with bigger action, more interesting, you know, effects, and but basically adherent to a particular kind of core mythology is where I see my passion. You know, that's what brought me to movies.
Nice.
Years ago, and that's where I want to be. And to branch off suddenly and do something that's so fantasy based, like a horror film or a science fiction film, I've done them, and it didn't work out. And I sat looking in the mirror after, going, why couldn't I do it? And I'm a good director, but why couldn't I pull this off the way I wanted to? And I realized you have to, you know, those genres deserve directors who love the material. My daughter is my daughter is a film director. She's making horror movies, and she lives in that genre. She loves these movies. She knows everything about it. Everyone's in them. She knows the color that the blood should be. She's working at the moment as an effects artist. She did the Lord of the Rings TV show. You know, worked on that in the effects department.
Wow.
And so she's absolutely thorough in everything to do with that genre. And she's the kind of person that should be directing horror movies. For me to go there, it would be a paycheck, and that's the wrong. It takes too much effort and too much work to make a film. You've got to be emotionally invested.
Right. No, that makes total sense. Gotta have that passion for that certain type of genre, right?
Yeah, I've done paycheck gigs, and you look at them and you're like, why did I do that? And they follow you around. We won't mention them.
Well, I'm loving the background you got there. Is that the good and the bad and the ugly poster you got on the left there?
On the left is the 1971 reissue of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is the year I was born, which is why I like that one particularly, because it's one of my favorites. That's an original. And the one immediately behind me is
that Lee Marvin.
Yeah, that's the Italian full-size poster from the first release of Point Blank, which is a John Borman film, which I absolutely adore and love.
Wow, it's funny because me and director Billy Hansen, we're actually going to be reviewing that soon. So it's kind of funny. That's awesome. You got a poster in the back.
I love that film so much. If you watch The Debt Collectors Part 2, which is a tiny little film I did with Scott Adkins and Louis Mandylor, the bad guy in that is called Mal Reese, and it's a girl, but in actual fact, John Vernon's character in Point Blank is Mal Reese. I just couldn't help it. It's such a cool name.
He's so humble. Tiny little film. We love Debt Collectors too. We love both of them. Yeah. Well, hold on. We got people watching right now. We got stuntman, filmmaker, actor Colin from the UK. He says, "Hi guys, I'm a huge fan of Jesse and his work. I know he has been asked this a lot, but is there any progress? Perfect timing on Debt Collector 3. Also, what is his environmental with Hellraiser 3? Hellraiser 3. Are you involved with Hellraiser 3?
No.
Right? Oh, okay.
So 2 questions. The first one is Debt Collector. Probably once a week, someone emails and asks about it. Business-wise, fan-wise, tons and tons of messages on that. It's probably the one that most, I get the most sort of correspondence over. I most recently talked with Ehud about that one. I have a script for it, which I've written, which I absolutely love, and we talked about it. But the situation has changed so dramatically from when I was making the first film to where I am now. I know it doesn't seem a vast amount of time, but my budgets have quadrupled. Scott's budgets have doubled.
Yeah.
And consequently, unfortunately, our paychecks are very, very different to what they were when they did the first one. And unfortunately, Ehud only wants to spend what he spent on the first one and the second one to do the third one, which makes sense, except that no longer, Scott and I's fee eats up that entire budget.
Gotcha.
So it's a problematic situation. We could lower it, but in this business, if you lower your fee, it is instantly the following day broadcast to everyone that is potentially going to employ you that your fee is now dropped.
Right.
Really, really creepy. It happens just like that. And so as much as I'd like to do it, trying to figure out a financial way of doing it at this point. I mean, we could bring in big name actors and put them as the Johns, but they're not going to do it. They don't want to work on a little film, simply they know exactly what's going on. And
that makes sense. I got you.
Such a tricky position. I've
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Avengement Part 2, which is similar, maybe a little bit more money, and Savage Dog Part 2 has been offered to me, and that came with scripts that someone had written, a spec that was given. The films are there. I was offered the Accident Man Part 2. I turned it down. It didn't make sense for me. I'd already done that film, and it doesn't make sense to repeat what you've done. The other thing was The Second Debt Collectors was a difficult film to make. It was it took something in the region of 25 or 30 rewrites, which I was doing. So you're not sleeping while you're doing it, trying to make it right to fit. I made myself very ill on that one. My stunt coordinator had to take me and take me to hospital because they had collapsed, and it was terribly embarrassing. And they had to put saline in me and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my goodness!
To make a little film is very, very difficult. You take on an awful lot of responsibility as the director and the writer. You're doing props. I was filming in my house and filming on the street outside my house. Everything, the guns were all from my personal armory, blank movie armory, and it becomes very, very stressful. It's not a fun endeavor. And then you're wondering if the film's going to be any good or not. And so it's tricky. I love low budget films. For the sort of sheer adventure and exhilaration of doing it all. But I really, really love making the bigger budget ones. I just came off a TV show where we had 50 horses with stuntmen and 200 to 300 extras all dressed in swords and armor in Budapest. And it's so much fun.
Wow.
And 7 cameras and 2 techno cranes. And this is exciting. This is making movies, and you're out there, and it's really, how it should be. So, the exhilaration of making a low budget film is fun, but it's difficult as well, and it's
exactly
a point where you just you'd really rather like to share some of the responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you're being tortured, being asked every day about but us fans, we love both of those films.
Not every day. It's about once a week.
Once a week.
Yeah. And no, don't get me wrong at all. It's not torture. It's one of the most wonderful things in the world. It's like they're getting little love letters every day,
Right.
Because someone's enjoying your work enough that they wish they would want you to make a sequel. We should all be so lucky,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Happen. No one asked me to make a sequel of Charlie Valentine or The Butcher or The Package, these earlier films. And I like those ones, but they desperately want these sequels to these other pictures, and that's a cool thing. As a artist, which ultimately, or creative, let's be less highfalutin about it. As a creative, that's exactly what you want. So the other question he asked was, what was my involvement in Hellraiser 3? I had no involvement in Hellraiser 3. Hellraiser 2, funnily enough, was the first set that I ever visited. I worked as a intern in the special effects department, not the special makeup effects, the special effects, which is fire and sparks and explosions.
Yeah.
I think it was Cliff Corbould was doing it, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but it was only 2 or 3 days, and I was probably 12 or 13, 14, something like that, completely illegal. I left school at 14 and started working on these things. 15 years old, really, after GCSE, I guess. And,
wow.
It was my life. I would cycle to the Pinewood Studios, and Nightbreed was the first one I got paid to be on, I think, or Getting It Right with Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah.
Nightbreed, I think, was the first one that I got paid to be on as a PA. You're running around with a walkie-talkie, and it was a Clive Barker horror film that was shot in Pinewood for Canada, I think. And then Getting It Right with John Gielgud and Dudley, Peter Cook and Lynn Redgrave. It was, running around on that one, and it's a good way of learning. It was. I think for me and my character, it was better to learn life that way than to have gone to a college where I think I probably would have just drunk myself into a stupor.
Right. Yeah. Copy that.
Discipline hammered in from outside, from an outside source. A boss. A role model. An actual, and then the knowledge that if you screwed up, your rent wouldn't be paid and you wouldn't eat is a much better way to motivate you when you're young, than someone telling you you're going to not get a good mark, which really wouldn't have worried me an awful lot. So I think it was a good training ground for me.
Yeah, getting your feet wet, the beginning, so that's really cool. It's funny because last year I had actually had the pleasure of interviewing Doug Bradley I had fun interviewing him and Ron Smorenberg, and we talked about we showed his fight scene when he fought Tony John triple threat, and that was fun. And he had some fun things to say about you and stuff like that. That's a really good fight. I think that fight's underrated in that
Ron
movie.
Smorenberg is terrific. He's a really, really beautiful human being. He'd worked for me on The Fifth Commandment, a film that I directed in Ireland with Rick Yoon, which had some great martial arts in it. It was cut to pieces. Unfortunately, I was exited from the project in editorial.
Oh no!
Cut together, ended up looking like someone's acting, terribly self-indulgent acting reel by the end of it, which was sad because it had the bare bones to be a really tremendous movie.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the knowledge at that point. It was my second film. I didn't have the game to be able to talk my way around a person who was equally as hard-nosed as I was. Unfortunately, he was the financier and I was just the employee. So we know how that ended. But I did enjoy working with Ron Smorenberg. And when I went back to Thailand to do Triple Threat, we looked him up and brought him in, and I gave him a part in that. And he and Dominic Vandenberg, another dear friend of mine who came out and helped on that, work together. And I think because they had a similar background, and I think Ron, gave some tips on film fighting to Dominic and helped him. And it was a good experience. And he's a good fight guy. And that fight that you're talking about, which ends with the bet with the knuckle, which I also used in the package, by the way. Stone Cold, uses it in one of the fights. Yeah. Robbie Dalton, Switchblade Knuckle Duster. The fight was Tim Mann's work, really. I've got to say that was his choreography. He brought it together. He would show me the previews. I'd make my notes, and then you'd step back and you'd let and those kind of movies, you don't get too involved as a first unit director while they're hashing it out and doing it.
Yeah.
I was there at the beginning, the first punch. I step away. I go off and do my first unit. Tim would take over. He'd do the fight all the way through to the last punch when I'd kind of drift back, and then I'd pick the scene up from the last punch. I got in and I was watching the end of the fight, and I just remember Ron saying to Tony Jaa, because they couldn't get the kick to the thigh to look like a hit. It kept looking like a miss. And I heard Ron say, "Tony, just go ahead and kick me." And before any of us could sort of step in and say, "No," and Tony kicked him. And I don't know if you know much about Tony Jaa, but he's a freight train. He's a little guy with intense power from those kicks.
He's legit. Yeah.
Ron dropped and was out for good, and it was a hospital visit, if I remember correctly. He was on a stretcher. Yeah. That was the end of the day. He was out of there. But we'd had that already in the fight at the beginning. He fought a guy called Frankenstein, and his name's Frankie, which is his Thai nickname. They all have nicknames so that the Farangs, us Westerners, can remember their names. And this big guy's name was Frankie because he was enormous. And it was the same deal, and they were doing a fight, and he'd said in Thai, "Just go ahead and kick me." But again, it was during filming. Of course, they'd done 3 takes. The cameras are rolling, and at that point, the people were like, "No!" Again, and Tony did the kick, and the guy dropped, and it was a hospital visit. To fully understand it, you have to kind of see it. It doesn't, I try to capture it as much as possible in film, but it's a whirlwind coming towards you, and you feel the noise from these kicks as the leg extends and the inside of the leg hits the inside of the pant leg, and it actually sounds like wood against wood. It's a very strange thing. I talked to Scott about it because he did the final fight, and he took me aside and said, "Good God, I have literally never fought anyone that's as intimidating as Tony Jaa, from UFC fighters to real hard cases to gangsters to stuntmen. It's an interesting thing. He's quite when he walks on set, the set sort of hushes and goes slightly quiet. So he's there, and he moves almost in slow motion until you start rolling the cameras. I would love to work with him again, and Eco as well. The two of them, I found absolutely amazing to work with. I on Triple Threat, I'd shot probably 4 or 5 days worth of a backstory to Eco's character. As a Muslim, because I talked to him while he was rehearsing, and he'd written me a beautiful letter saying, "I won't be able to rehearse today because it's Ramadan, and so I'm off, and I didn't realize it was hadn't put it together that it was a practicing Muslim, and so I worked that into his character, and he had a wife, and he had a situation, a whole backstory, and we shot it, and it was some of the most beautiful stuff I've shot. And then the distributor saw it and said, no, this is going to a Chinese audience, and they don't want that in there. They don't like it. We're going to have to reshoot it and take it out. And it was really heartbreaking, but it was just the first of many things to do with Triple Threat, and the post-production heartbreaking. That was a brutal experience. But yeah, no. So I would really want the opportunity to shoot with Eco and Tony again. Both of them loved it. But yeah, Ron is wonderful. Ron's a good guy. I'm glad. Nice things, nice memories.
Yeah, he's great. He's been killing it lately with in Mayhem and other films. He's been doing so good. But yeah, y'all, everybody watching right now, spread the word. Iko Uwais, Tony Jaa, Jesse V. Johnson. Let's go. Let's get the band back together, baby. Let's go. Let's do one more round. There you go. I just named your movie. One more round.
I love it.
Yeah. And if you do, if hopefully, fingers crossed, we get a Deck Collectors 3, you still got to use my idea. I don't know if you remember my idea, having the fake movie trailer before the actual movie starts of Louis Mandylor's ninja film.
Yeah, we have to shoot that. That would be perfect.
You gotta do it.
He's amazing. He just seems to be getting fitter and healthier and younger looking as he ages. It's crazy.
I don't know how he does it.
This format where he's jumping around, shooting and kicking and fighting. Like, God, the guy's a machine.
Yeah, he is. But again, for Triple Threat, shout out to Tim Mann. And earlier, mentioning Mr. Dominique Vandenberg's name. Shout out to Dominique. It was a pleasure interviewing him a while back. But he's also in Boudica, Queen of War. And it was awesome. Every time I see him pop up, I'm like, yeah, there he is. All right. When Dominique appears on screen, shit's about to go down.
His death scene in this film either. Unfortunately, second unit went off and shot it, and I didn't like what they did. I wanted him to have the most epic death scene. But this is the problem with making these films where you don't have, you've got, the budget of a secondhand Fiat car. It's heartbreaking, but he dies okay, and it's a good little beat, but God, I really wanted to give him something special, and that was upsetting to me. But the film is Olga's, and Olga looks wonderful. She looks wonderful in the picture, and I think her performance is really, really good. And
for sure.
For me, it was to show that more than anything else. It was not supposed to be a big action movie. It was supposed to be a small movie about this woman who finds herself in a position that thinks she's ill prepared for, but then realizes that she's actually been prepared for it her entire life, which is I found very, very interesting. I think we all have a lot more inside our soul than we think is there. It's our own demons that keep us back from our true potential.
Well, brother, you made this little small movie big. You made this small movie big. But really quick, before I play the trailer for everybody watching, Olga is great. She's always amazing. But man, the cast in this is so good. Peter Franzen as Wolfgar. He's amazing.
A long time. His wife played the lead in The Butcher for me with Eric Roberts.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Irina Björklund. She's won the Swedish Oscar, and all the two of them are amazingly well known in Scandinavia. That's they've been breaking in over here with things like Vikings and
he's so good in Vikings. Yeah, like he was great in the film. I mean, everyone did such a good job. Leo Gregory.
Immense in this picture. People think it's easy to play a nasty guy, a bad guy. He's one of the nicest guys I know, and yet he plays those parts so well. And it's like, how do you do this? Because you're literally a gem of a human being, but he plays them so well, and he does it much better than I thought it was going to be. It was written far less effectively than he played it.
Oh wow. Yeah, he killed it. He was great. Lucy Martin was great. And
wonderful. They're our friends. We love them, and they're so good. And I just, again, like Dean Jagger, I want to see them take over the world. These are the people who should be taking over the world. Lucy's she reminds me. I worked with Angelina Jolie on Beowulf. I worked very closely with her. She was, in fact, a lot more with the attainable to the stunt team on that movie than she was to the rest of the crew, which kind of ticked off everyone. But she enjoyed hanging with the stunt guys, talking about sword fighting. And I I thought she was tremendous, and Lucy has a lot of that same vibe. I want to see someone take her and put her in a picture that she's she's the lead in, and and Clive as well. Clive should have been Bond. These guys are really
Exactly.
very lucky with the cast. I really did.
Yeah.
I hope people enjoy them in the picture because it's for me that's what makes a film.
Oh yeah, Clive Stand-in did a phenomenal job. Another Viking and alumni there, and man, Nick Moran, man, is he good or what?
He's so brilliant. I owe him my firstborn. He's made me look good in so many films. He's in Chief of Station, which is coming up with Aaron Eckhart. He plays a tremendously good former KGB officer. They didn't put him on the poster. I don't understand why they don't do that. But anyway, he's very, very good. But I talked to him midway through Boudica while we're shooting. I said, you're doing really good with this, Nick. What's going on in your head? Because it's whatever you're doing, it's nothing to do with my direction. It's fabulous. And he said, I'm going to tell you a little story. When they were prepping Gladiator, it was Jude Law. Jude Law didn't want to play opposite this unknown from Australia. So Jude Law backed out as Commodus. And at the last minute, they need to find Commodus, the evil Caesar.
Yeah.
And Nick went in for 4 or 5 rehearsals with Ridley Scott, auditions, and got, was thought he had the part, basically. Knew the part, back to front, understood it, played it opposite Russell, all this kind of stuff. And then suddenly the phones went dead. And next thing you know is it's Joaquin Phoenix playing it. But he said it left such a kind of blister on him, such a mark, that he brought all of that venom and ferocity and evil to Catus Decianus in My Boudica. So I was very happy about that.
Yeah, he was. Oh my God,
for poor old Nick, it was great.
He's one of those characters. You just like he's so good at being evil.
We had really a hard time on this one because the light was short, days was all this kind of blah blah blah. Every indie film has a tough go of it when they're making it, but we had I think it was a 1.5-page speech he gives to her before she's branded, and it was brutal. And I'm looking at the clock, and we're already supposed to have wrapped, and the sun's coming down, and I've got 3 or 4 different producers, and now the unit production manager's turned up, and someone else from accounting's turned up, and they're all tapping their watches or their cell phones, looking at me with daggers, and they're about to pull the plug on the plugs in the lights and the generator.
Oh wow!
Hand on the plug, like, you cannot shoot. I said, I haven't even shot the scene yet. It's 1.5 pages. And Nick looked at me and he kind of winked and said, let's do it. Just do it. Just roll the cameras.
I got this.
Rolled the cameras. He did it in one, the entire scene, all of the dialogue, no rehearsal, hadn't seen it before, had no idea what was going to happen. He said, we're done. The plug got pulled. Producers are like, sorry, that's it. And I looked at Nick and I said, I'm so sorry, brother. That's we can't do any more. And he said, no, that's great. I loved it. I gave it everything.
Wow, nailed it.
It's awesome. But you don't often get the chance to work with people like that are as cool and kind of know. He's directing pictures as well, really good films. So he understands what you're up against when you're doing this stuff. Your back's up against the wall a lot of the time. And, creativity goes out the window some days, and you're simply thinking of the Rubik's Cube of how you can get something done in the minimum amount of time and actually tell the story, because the next day you're in another location and you'll never be coming back to that particular location again. So
gotcha.
It can be terribly soul destroying, not even depressing. It's just like, oh my God, I spent 10 years. My daughter's middle name is Boudica. I've spent 17 years with this idea to make this film, and I'm stuck here, and I'm going to, I've got 15 minutes to get what should be shot in 3 days. But you can't cry in the corner. You do it. You do what you can. Get it done. And you're in and out, and baby, that's don't make excuses, which is actually what I'm doing now. So let's stop doing that. And I like your idea.
Copy that.
Movie.
Yeah, copy that. But yeah, phenomenal cast. They did such a good job in here. But before we play the trailer, we got some chat here.
Right.
Hold on. Neenan says, Avengement was effing awesome. There we go.
Thank you.
There we go. There we go. Scott Atkins is amazing. Avengement is one of his best films and is so good. Yes.
I think it's definitely one of his best films. I think it's his best film.
I do too.
Very, very good. And he's terrific in everything he does. I think the Boudica pictures, he's astounding. What he does in those is incredible. I think he's very good in the debt collector's pictures. I liked him a lot as Mike Fallon in Avengement, in Accident Man. I thought he did that was a truly interesting and original character. You know, there was, you know, he's more than shown he's capable of being the lead in a huge movie, and I think someone needs to do that soon. And you know, hopefully AJ Perry or Chad Stahelski are one of those guys. They give him a team where he gets to play the lead and he becomes a household name, and that's the end of him having to do low budget. You know,
come on, Scott, Boudica 5, let's go. Come on, we can do it. Spread the word, everybody watching. Boudica 5. Oh my goodness. But we got some more here. Say hello, Fat Samurai Guy and special guest Jesse loved Boudica. I found it on Netflix UK and loved it. Look at that.
You have to go in with an open mind. At the end of the day, it's a story it's her story with the girls. I watch it and I get teared up when I see the statue at the end, and you go to that moment. If you're there for a big scale action movie, then that's the wrong. You know, there are probably better places to go. But I think the story, the personal story on it, is quite moving. I mean, it's, you know, I'm quite proud of it. It works well.
Everyone can relate to revenge. You know, being wronged, having everything taken away from them, and they want to fight back. Everyone can relate to that.
They can, but then also the other, you know, tale, you know, word spoken on revenge, which is the man who sets out on revenge should first dig 2 graves, one for the person he's after and one for himself. And I think that's an important part of any revenge film. You can't have him walk away into the sunset. Revenge, in its essence, is a terrible way to live, with that heavy burden of needing to kill someone to get your own back. That's, you know, that destroys the person who is on the quest to revenge as well. And I think this is the thing that is lost in so many modern pictures that are made by people that adore comic books and adore you know, mythology. They don't quite look at what really happens to the human soul in these situations. I think it's important. You know, how important it is, I don't know, but to me it was important.
Yeah, there's a price to pay.
Yeah.
Jeff here says JVJ is the man. Oh yes.
Thank you, Jeff.
And we got Neenan says there's an Avengement 2. Jesse, you got to give me a role in the movie, and I got to get killed by Scott Adkins.
I will search you down and find you for it.
Yes.
Scott's pretty tough to do fight scenes with. If you're not used to it, we had a few people come in begging to be in fight scenes with him, and it's you're into the furnace when you do that. I think Mike Fury came down, who's a movie writer, wonderful human being, publicist, and he had done some martial arts and wanted to be in this fight scene. And boy, oh boy, he had a trial by fire on that one. I watched it. I felt bad about it. I wanted to step in and say, if you want, you can leave, but
just make it quick. I run out. He just breaks my neck. Done. That's it.
You know, and he would know, as I would know, if we went back and did an Avengement 2, it would have to raise the ante. You wouldn't repeat ourselves. It would have to be twice as violent and twice as you know.
I love it.
And
you got me excited already. Good. Let's go. Let's do it for sure. But here we go here. The package was really good. There we go.
Thank you, Colin.
Fan of the package. I still remember watching Pit Fighter back in the day, probably the first, along with Special Forces, that I saw Scott Adkins. Yes. Jeff says, how can Jesse... Go ahead, Jesse.
Very nice thing to say, Jeff. Thank you. Really good cinematography. I'm very lucky. Jonathan Hall is fantastic, and then, you know, Simon in the UK was very good on One Ranger. I've been very lucky. I was making Pit Fighter, and, you know, I think we had 12 days to make that or something. And Isaac Florentine, who's a friend of mine, said, "You got to take a look at this kid, Scott Adkins." And he was in town at the time, no green card, no work permit. I said, "Oh, come on down, play a part." And I wrote that part for him. He came to Universal Studios. We were filming on the back lot, which a lot of you, if you don't know, Universal Studios give it away almost free because they're desperate to have films there when the tram comes around, which we've learned about. It's fun, but you have the tram coming by every 40 minutes with people taking photos. But Scott came out and he did that part. It was a lot of dialogue, and I knew I'd work with him again at some point, but it was a precipitous introduction.
Oh yeah. Neenan says, will there be a German dub of Boudica soon, maybe in the future?
I don't know. I don't know if it's come out in Germany, but I guess it's subtitled. If you're asking, but I know it had its German release. I'm surprised they didn't dub it. They usually have the choice of that, but no, I don't know yet. Sorry.
And most importantly, please keep doing the juicy squibs. There we go.
Someone asked me this morning, another interviewer, they asked about blanks and fake gunfire. I have no problem with visual effects gunfire. My problem, because they do it so beautifully now, it's very realistic. The gun can shake and the muzzle flash makes sparks and the shell comes out. The problem is not the pyrotechnic for me. The problem is the actor's reaction. And most actors, when they shoot the rubber guns or the soft air guns, they don't react in the same way that you would if a real gun were going off in the hand. And the audience who's watching that film is watching the actor for the reaction instinctively, even if they can't put their thumb on what it is that they're looking at, and it doesn't look quite right, and they know something's not quite right, and now they're taken out of the picture. So my problem, as I say, is not with the fakery of it. I use the fakes all the time when a flash doesn't go off as big as we want it to, or for some reason the shutter cuts it out and you get the shell case but no flash. I'll put a fake one in because they look fantastic, but it's the actor reacting that I've had the problem with, making them look like they're in the moment, and they are our barometer as the audience. We're looking at them for the reaction we should feel. You see a person embarrassed, you're not embarrassed until you see all the people laughing at him. Each of the cuts of the faces of those guys reacting and laughing is what tricks us. And the same with an explosion going off or a squib. So the muzzle flashes, it's a more complex answer. The blood hits, I think they haven't. There's not really very much that works the way that an actual explosive squib with the plate and the exploding condom. There's nothing that quite comes close to that in terms of the visual, visceral thrill, impact that you get when you see one of those. You can amplify it a little bit. You can use clear liquid or dust, and you can help that with a little bit of blood visual effects. But it's an interesting thing. I will keep using it when it's practical. When it's not practical,
right.
You can use especially if you're doing a fight scene between two guys with a pistol. You don't want to use a blank for that. It's unnecessarily dangerous. Use a squib, use a visual effects squib. But it's it's an interesting thing. I agree. I think there's so much to be said for keeping it as practical as possible in terms of keeping the audience invested in what's going on. If you're going to use visual effects, try not to show that they're visual effects. I've done a few movies where they're not very good, so I know you can bring those up. But my codex is to try and do it as practically as possible first through planning and safely, choreographing it, and then figuring out, if we can buy it a little bit with a CG or not.
Yeah. Copy that. Yeah. And there's a lot of bloody squibs and more in one Ranger. I loved Thomas Jane's fight in the kitchen in that apartment complex. That was a great fight.
Good? Wasn't that good? That was Dan Stiles, who's a very quietly spoken English stunt coordinator, who put that together, and I think he did a tremendous job of that. Really, really
hard hits.
Yeah, and then Rob Polgar, who's my American DP, second unit DP, who came to England, flew himself out to England to work on that one with me, who shot that with Dan. They did a tremendous job. I love it. I really found it really interesting. It was obviously all scripted, and we did the previews and we talked it through. But when they shot that, I shot the first punch, and I'm off doing first unit. I come back as he picks up the bloody knocked out guy and puts him in the boxes. So that was I was really excited by that when I saw that. I love the eye being popped and a little bit of blood spraying on the wall. Gross. I thought it was great. We worked very, very hard on the sound effects on that one as well. It was that was quite a few days in the sound place. And in Boudica we used a lot of blood as well. And I hopefully that made it through to the English version. And the various different versions. I know they cut it out for they spent a long time cutting all of the violence out for the airplane version. And I purposely wanted nothing to do with that. I wanted not to have any culpability. So if anyone asked, I could say I had nothing to do with it. That was the producers. Because for me, it just doesn't. The Boudica story doesn't work without the blood flowing.
Yeah.
And
there's rivers of blood in Boudica. Satisfied my I need that gore, man.
In the
Especially with
1950s, you saw people sword fight, and then they'd hit the one guy, it would go onto his arm, and he'd fall down with a groan, and Errol Flynn would carry on fighting. And that's just not what a sword fight is. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible experience.
yeah,
You've held a sword and looked at it. You've got to hit the other person hard enough to stop him moving. And a big, strong man takes a lot of, you can't, it's very difficult to aim for the heart. You've got to hit him a bunch of times, and there's
yeah.
blood flowing everywhere. I watch stuff of guys being hit with axes and swords in various different third world countries. I mean, it's really, really brutal. And I wanted people to feel, it was ugly and nasty and not pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is not John Wick flipping a guy on his back and hitting him 3 times and quickly shooting him while looking the other way. This is an ugly, ugly, ugly business.
Yeah.
Really horrific. There's no martial arts to it. You can't martial art a guy that's running at you 17 miles an hour swinging a poleaxe. That's that goes out the window. Now you're just trying to spike him. It's, I wanted to show that. I'll do it again. I'm going to do another one that goes back. We have a great script that.
Oh, nice
piece. I'm a little burnt out at the moment because I went straight from Boudica to the Pendragon cycle, which is 5 months of swords and armor and sort of horses.
Yeah, right.
Now I'm going into the desert with a present day detective piece, but I will come back to sword and.
Where can we watch that series?
I think it's just Daily Wire. I'm not entirely sure. That will be probably later.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah. It was a best-selling series of novels that I read, and I read the script, and it was a very compelling script. There was no politics in it or anything like that. It was just a very, very compelling story. That
Nice.
I had been in Spain on a picture that had fallen through, and I'd been there 9 weeks, and I got a call saying, can you come to Budapest and talk about directing a TV show? I said I can actually be there in 4 hours, which is pretty awesome. You don't get
Neenan says Boudica, it does have a German dub, so they're good. They're good.
Very good. Very good.
Nice. And one last thing, I wanted to talk about One Ranger, and I don't know if anyone else out there who reviewed the film mentioned this, but I wanted to mention it here. Is y'all know I love action. Okay, I'm here for the action. I'm here for the excitement, and I got that in this movie. However, one of the most positive things that stood out to me was our leads' relationship and how they played off of each other. And usually let's be honest, a lot of modern day action movies or superhero or flicks, when you bring in the young buck, the young buck always shits on the old buck the whole movie. And the young buck is always like great at everything and perfect at everything. And they just shit on the legacy characters. And you see that a lot with the recent action films. And what I loved about this movie is you didn't get that. They both had mutual respect for each other, both of these characters, and they both were there for each other. Both actors had great chemistry. And I just really enjoyed that a lot in this film. And I don't know if anyone else is mentioning this, but this is a huge positive, because usually with movies like this, like I said, they always shit on the old legacy characters. And it's just like, they're perfect in every way. They're perfect in every way. There's no flaws, which isn't the case. And you showed that both characters have a past, both characters have flaws, but they work together for the common good. And we need more movies like that. So
she was great, wasn't she, Dominic? She's so house. I really, really dug working with her. I called her for chief of station, but she was playing the lead on something already, some action film. So I'm going to work with her again. She has serious cojones. She's in there and just enormously talented. We had so many props from this, and everyone thinks they can be an actor. Everyone secretly somewhere in their soul thinks I can do that. It's really easy. I just talk in front of the camera. But I did stuff with her where she had a gun, a pair of handcuffs, a knife, just an enormous amount of hand props that she had to sort out whilst doing dialogue. And we've got that awful ticking time of, we've got to get this done relatively soon. We can't, this is not David Lean. We can't wait around till the sun's right, and she would just be spot on every time. Absolutely dead perfect. And she's done a lot of television. I love TV actors because they have to work in that you know, that furnace every day. You know, that you know, if you fail, you're out. You know, especially the guys from like EastEnders and these you know, more brutally shot things that shoot quite quickly. And she was just brilliant, just brilliant. Wasn't afraid of TJ, Thomas Jane, wasn't intimidated by him.
Nice.
The action, the rest of us looked at it all. She'd been a dancer, so she understood choreography in its essence. It's very similar dancing. In fact, probably dancing is twice as difficult as fighting, but understood all of that in its essence. Worked with the guns, with the blanks, with the effects, and was fearless. I would absolutely kill to work with her again. And I did think that a lot of the relationship that they have in reality, her and TJ, which is a complex one because they've done a TV show together, you know, so it's a love put up with. I'm not going to say love hate. It's a love, you know, put up with kind of thing. And she brought that to this character, and I thought it worked very well. I would have spent a lot more time on it had I had more time in the schedule. Really, really milked it because I too thought it was exciting. So I'm glad you noticed that. Thank you, Preston.
It's what I do. It's what I do. But yeah, love their relationship. The characters, they work so well together, and that's what it's all about, working together. But now let's go ahead. We're going back in time. We're putting the guns down, baby. And now let's go ahead and talk about Boudica, Queen of War.
Forward!
Tell me, what does it mean?
Boudica was a queen, a goddess, and some believe she will come again to free us from the Romans.
They believe that a woman warrior will somehow be their salvation.
They must not find their savior.
Our people asked the gods of the land to provide us a leader, and now they have. Accept me and my men as your loyal servants, my queen.
Rome will not recognize you as queen.
Stand down!
Hail Nero.
I am Boudica. You are my people. We're in a time of extreme peril. We fight for our freedom.
Your will will be, my queen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Fun trailer. That's the first time I've seen the trailer.
Oh my goodness. That's how you do a trailer. Yeah, man.
Once I
S.V. Johnson making small films big. That's what he's good at.
investment in this, emotional investment, that it's painful to see this stuff sometimes, you know.
And this was a passion project, correct?
Certainly was for way too long. Yeah. It was it was a passion project for a long time. My daughter's middle name is Boudica. Absolutely loved the story. My mother took me to see the statue in London when I was little, and it was a story that affected her. Most English school kids were taught about. I don't know if they still are, but you know, when I was a kid back in Victorian times, they we were taught about the Boudica story and you know where it came from. It was Boudica I was growing up, and then somewhere after I left high school, it was changed to Boudica, which is the Celtic pronunciation, as it was felt that the Roman pronunciation was wrong. You know, to call her by her Roman name when she was really very much an English queen, a Celtic queen. And so I rather like the change to Boudica. It makes a lot of sense. It's rather good as opposed to Boudica, which is the Roman pronunciation.
Right. Copy that.
You go to the statue, which was put up in Victorian times, you'll see it says Boudica, and then underneath it's re-engraved Boudica.
Copy that. This, man, shots like this so good.
Yeah, it's fun stuff, isn't it? So I had thought it would never get made. The problem was, finding a lead actress that could carry that off. And it wasn't until I did White Elephant and met Olga that I realized there was a chance of making this work, of making it become something, a reality. Also working with Nina Bergman on Hell Hath No Fury. I just enjoy working with, these powerful female actresses. It's fun. It's great. I enjoy it. I enjoy the collaboration. It's the stories. I was brought up by a single mother, so the stories are exciting for me to watch come together, and unabashedly interested in doing those kind of stories. I like it. And so I approached Olga and flew to Paris to sort of pitch her. Took all of them. I drew a lot of the storyboards and costume designs. I drew her face as a queen with the curly hair and the silks, and I drew the face with the eyebrows shaved off and the scar and the mad, orange hair and the false teeth. And so I said, these are the two characters. This is your progress. You started as this beautiful, mother who has her fingernails done and her hair done with her daughters, very much like a 21st century Beverly Hills housewife. And this is what she becomes at the end of the movie. This warrior woman who's broken in every way except for spirit. The teeth are gone, the eyebrows, the thing that dictates a woman's, look to us in many cases are gone. She's got mud on her face, and this is what she comes back as. There's no pretense or care for what she looks like. It's simply this drive to get revenge for her family, and she dug that. She liked it. It appealed to her. We talked a little bit about Ukraine, and we talked a little bit about but we had our own story. She was very concerned. She said, "But I'm not English. How can I play this?" I said, "No, there's no such thing as English." When this happened, it was an island with multiple tribes, perhaps 100 different, over 100 different tribes that in many cases spoke completely different languages. Some, there was no Celtic language that sounded anything like the English we speak nowadays. I said, it's absolutely fine. It's the most international of stories. It's a small group of people being oppressed by a far larger, better equipped group of people who are greedy and nasty and trying to exploit the smaller one. It could be Vietnam, it could be Ukraine, it could be, you name it. It could, Belgian Congo, it could be anything. This is Rhodesia, whatever. This is a story that is timeless, and I think it's always going to. And then on top of that, you have the personal story of her story, and she dug all of that. She liked it, and she sort of signed on at that point. And then it became a dash to try and find money. It's very, very difficult trying to get money for these kind of things. And I was very lucky that Ehud Bleiberg, who has financed quite a few of my pictures, stepped up to the plate. He's wonderful.
Nice. But yeah, I love shots like this. It's a great shot.
That's Chris. He's tremendous. I took him with me to Budapest to do Chief of Station. Very, very good actor. Lucinda Thackra found him, who's the line producer on Boudica, and recommended him, and he's brilliant.
I mean, the Romans are just ruthless.
Yeah.
Just ruthless in this movie, man.
Well, if you imagine I achieved about 5% of how ruthless they really were, that'll give you some idea. It would be a splatter porn horror movie if I showed exactly what they did, and how they did it.
Oh yeah,
torture,
I'm sure.
Seeds.
That's a great shot right here.
This is wonderful. This is Kevin Van Hook, who's one of my dear friends who's helped me out in visual effects for several movies. This is something he created. I believe he created it from scratch, which is even better.
Wow.
We had a lot of battles in visual effects, not personal battles, but just trying to make this stuff look as photoreal as possible. It's not a simple thing to do without vast sums of money. Things like this that were you do your very, very best to make them as photoreal as you possibly can, and it's really a process of he'll deliver one thing, I'll look at it and say, no, we got to do that. You're going backwards and forwards, and what you end up seeing in the movie may be the iteration of maybe 35 or 40 passes by the poor visual effects artists who are pulling their hair out in frustration at me by this point, and the amount of money we have to spend is getting less and less, and the other 70 or 80 shots in the movie are looming over us as the delivery date draws ever closer.
Oh man. And wow, I mean, Lucy right here, This scene right here, after this scene ended, I shouted and pointed at the at the TV. You are my new favorite character.
Yeah, she's absolutely terrific. Deserves a spin-off.
Yeah, she's so good.
Cartamundo is a slight play on spelling play on the actual another warrior who had chosen to fight the Romans. For some reason, there's nothing written on her. There were no, the Romans. The only reason we have Boudica in our history is because of what Tacitus and the other guy wrote about her, and they were reviews of 2 different battles and a tiny little bit of back history on her, and so we have that information. But Cartamundo we know existed, but she fought a battle in the north against the Romans, but it wasn't recorded in the same way, so we don't know anything about her. But I decided to make Lucy's character called Cartamundo and maybe hint that perhaps she had done something prior to this one that was interesting. There's our hero. He's on Peaky Blinders.
Never. Oh yeah, that's another great show. Never heard any good things about Nero.
The thing is, you read him, and there are reevaluations on him. I didn't want to actually have him play the fiddle while Rome burned at the other one. If you look closely, you can see the harp in the background of the shot.
Oh, all right. I see what you did there. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, he would often just turn up completely naked, and we talked about doing that scene naked, and then I just lost my nerve at the last minute, so I put him in a little toga around his little loincloth. But he would do that regularly. Have a whole bunch of officers, hardened soldiers come in, and he'd stand naked and give his orders to them, and if anyone said anything or did anything, then he'd punish them. It was sort of like, it was just there's some really really interesting stories that we everything in the movie I researched and put in there. It feels contemporary in many ways, and there's maybe anachronistic, but we worked so diligently and hard to make it as spot on as possible.
Oh yeah. But yeah, he did a great job playing that character, because you're just like, oh boy, we have an interesting one here. We have a very eccentric Caesar we got going on here. Was this sequence here supposed to be a little longer?
The attack on him, yeah. There was. They wanted. I wanted it off camera altogether. Ahud wanted to show him being killed, and so we shot it. And then I didn't really like it very much, so I used it as a flashback.
Gotcha. Hey, well, it worked. It worked though.
Well, it's okay. It would have been more troops required to kill him. I didn't think it was adequate of such a fantastic warrior to simply have him killed by one guy. An arrow in the back. It's it's okay. It's all good.
Olga's performance was great. She's so good.
She was wonderful. Wonderful.
And without spoiling anything, what you did with her daughters was brilliant. By the way,
that's the big problem with the Boudica story, and why it has never really worked for me before. And I watched probably 2 or 3 or 4 different versions, that English TV and various different plays and things and it doesn't work, because what happened to them is so explicitly awful and so unfilmable, and it's not entertainment of any level, not even entertainment, as in, living next door to a concentration camp entertainment. It's awful. It's awful. Yeah. What Catus did to the 2 daughters. And so how do you have that element in your film? How do you work with that? And that was the big problem. And that's what took me decades or so to try and figure out. And then it popped, and what you see in the film is the resultant way that I felt was the most artistic, the most artistic and the most valid way of showing it, that paid them the respect that they I think required. You don't want to show that stuff and profit off it.
Yeah, of course, but like at first, the way they were speaking to her and all that, the dialogue. I was kind of like, like I was like, I'm thinking, like, I'm like, wait a minute, something a little off here. And then once the big reveal, happens later, I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's
it's brilliant. I think there's a lot to be said for things like Jaws, where the monster is kept off screen until the very end, because the audience watching will imagine what it looks like, and that's fun to do. And in this case, the crime that was committed And what happened, the audience is given time for it to sort of settle, and it becomes, and when it is finally revealed what has happened, it's a far less of a shock and less horrific than it should have been. But in many ways, it's more profound. I hope anyway. I hope that's how it comes across. It was how it was planned. I hope I didn't screw it up.
No, like I said, I thought it was brilliant. This man, he's so good. He's so good, this actor.
Such a wonderful human being as well, both of them. I went down and stayed at their place in France when I did his ADR, which is, he lives in the south of France. They have a little farm there with goats and cows and horses, and it's just beautiful. But the crazy thing was, they live in the town that Hell Hath No Fury was set in.
Oh wow!
It just is one of those weird things. And I took some photos of the signpost and sent it to Nina when I went down to do his sound, because I said, you won't believe it, but I'm in Aubagne in the south of France, which is exactly where the town with the cemetery in it is where Hell Hath No Fury is set, which was also the town where Jean de Florette was set, which is one of my favorite sort of French films by based on the book by Marcel Pagnol, and that's the countryside that Peter and his wife live in. So just a strange little tiny fact that doesn't mean much to anyone, but anyone who knows those two films.
Fun facts with Jesse. Yeah, fun facts. Yeah, Peter's so good. I mean, Peter was stealing every scene he was in Vikings.
God,
like every scene he was in, he was stealing scenes. But yeah, I would love to. Interview you, sir, in the future for sure. Get him on the show.
I'm sure he'd love to do it.
Yeah, but yeah, so good. I mean, it's just so heartbreaking already having to deal with losing her husband, and now she's forced, kind of like, well, you're queen now, you got to do it, and then what happens next is just like, here he is.
These woods were interesting. These are on the grounds of a school friend of mine's farm in Suffolk, and it was literally the last place we could find to film. I was staying with him when we were prepping the film, because of course it's low budget. They didn't have enough money for a hotel, so they're like, "Do you have any friends?" So, funny enough, I've got an old school friend who has a farm, outside of Ipswich.
Nice.
I stayed at his house. He's got this big woods on it, and he said, "Well, you can film here if you can't find anything else." And after weeks of scouting, trying to find somewhere, I drove to North Wales. I drove all over England trying to find places that were close enough to, various different logistical issues, not the least of which is getting people put up for the night and getting them all out there. We finally shot the majority of it at his farm. And one day he walked out with a big box, a wooden box. He said, by the way, these are a lot of the Roman artifacts I found while plowing the field here. And there were little dolls and glass objects and little bits of metal, because he's got a metal detector as well. And sure enough, we're 20 miles from Colchester, which is Cullodenham, which is the first, which is where the temple, of Claudius is. That was the first major city that she burned on her sort of revenge streak. So there's every possibility that she galloped and was around this neighborhood that we filmed the actual film in, which is pretty interesting. It was like this little voice saying, "Treat this story with respect, Jess. This is where she was, this is where she grew up as well. So do it right. Don't fuck it up." But that was interesting anyway. So, but it is beautifully positioned, because Suffolk is on this sort of streak through England, which actually has a little bit of warmth and sun to it, whereas the rest of England is in rain. We'd be there and we'd have sun, which is one of those beautiful things that sometimes happens on a movie. The movie gods smile at you. So we had these great sort of shots with sunbeams coming through the trees and things that we were lucky to have. Otherwise, it would have been pitch black in there.
Yeah, beautiful. Hey, you got to use what you got. Use what you got. But Nick's so good.
Nick is tremendous.
He's so good in this movie, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of scene stealing, and just brutal, the torture she had to go through, man, this character. But look at her now, man. Look at this. That's it. It's game over. That's a wrap.
Yeah, this stuff is interesting. You write it in your script, and she stands with those soldiers and raises her arm and shouts, and then you get out there, you realize you've got to put this together. It takes just, because you're cheating. We don't have enough people, so I've got to angle them to the lens. If you imagine there's two lines coming off from the camera, 5 degrees as to what we can see. That's the only place that we put the extras. and the background. Outside of that, we don't care because it's not on camera. So you're basically pushing everyone in. So you literally, if the camera moved 1 inch to the left, you'd see there was no one there. If it moved 1 inch to the other side, you'd see no one there. And you're just desperately trying to make 12 people look like 100 people. And it's enormously challenging. So one line in the script becomes a whole afternoon of trying to get it together.
Exactly. Copy that. Yeah, I'm sure it was. How many days to film the movie was it?
18 days or something.
18 days. Oh my goodness. That's impressive.
It's like 3 and a bit weeks, so 4 weeks or something. You're in and out because it's holidays and things like that. These were shot in Ipswich town centre. This is a big old church they have there, and this is on one side of the church, and then the charges were shot on the other side of the church. And it was quite fascinating. It was quite interesting. I walked there. We'd been setting it all up and getting the thing ready, and I walked over there, and there's a group of hoodlums there doing in the corners, the tough guys, English.
Right.
They all look skinny enough. You poked them in their one good eye, they'd fall over. But they with their matching tracksuit top and bottom, and they said, this is our territory. What do you mean? He said, you can't make your little film here. Sorry, mate. I'm like, well, we'll be here in about 10 minutes. You can stay and watch if you want. Nah, it's not going to work. We're not going to let you film here. And almost as he finished his sentence, about 40 Romans and barbarians walked in behind me. And then the police following them, and then the crew following them. And it was quite an amusing moment seeing these guys' expressions as they shrank into the nearest shadow that they could find. The funny thing was, one of them came back. He had a yellow tracksuit, and I recognized him. He stayed the entire night till about 2 a.m. And he came to me, almost crying in the morning. He said, "This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. This is absolutely wonderful. Do you mind if I stay in touch with you? Because I just want to be," which was quite a transfer from being a heavy that was trying to stop me from coming into his dope smoking area.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Hey, you never know, Jesse. You may have inspired a future filmmaker.
If I do, that's a wonderful thing, and I hope I do.
Yeah. But with a typical Jesse V. Johnson movie, you're gonna get some good action, baby. That's right.
Some bloodletting in here.
Oh yeah, just brutal.
Yeah, that's the one. And I quite like that. It's only a clip of it, so it starts with all the fighting, and the Steadicam pulls back through all the fighting, and then we pick up the severed head, and we follow the severed head back to where the guys are standing by the pedestal there.
Right.
Quite a fun. I like doing those one-ers. You set them up, and it's quite exciting. Everyone has to work really, really hard to get it. Choreograph it.
Yeah.
Sort of galvanizes a crew and cast and stunt people, because by this point in the show, I think we're into the 4th week. People were just threadbare. No one had any sleep and haven't eaten properly, and everyone's confused about what kind of film it is they're making. Because they only see their part of it. It's rushed, and they've all got their own dramas going on, as everyone does. And you do a shot like that, you start early in the afternoon because it was going into the night. You spend maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours rehearsing, putting it together. And you see the team sort of come back together again, and everyone enjoys it. Everyone now every single person has the burden of responsibility on them because if anyone screws up, we'll have to redo the one-er again, which includes Olga herself walking in with the severed head. And it's a really fun thing to do those midway, through the shoot like that, just to pull everyone back together again and sort of get the team excited about something. And it was fun to do that.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great scene. I mean, that kind of stuff, I love that stuff, especially when Boudica is just walking around with the head, walking around, defeated her enemy, is walking around.
At that point, she starts to get a little confused. Or no, she starts to have the seeds of doubt as to what it is that she's doing, because now she's just lopping heads off and killing. And there's a point to which that doesn't make sense to her anymore. She has to re-find herself,
Right.
And that was important to me, otherwise you're just a one, this is a person who's given birth to children. She's brought them up. She's been in a loving relationship. It's not, to then become a killer overnight. It's not believable. There has to be the shred, there has to be the embers of the humanity that are still there in your soul that question you as to what you're doing. And she's chopped off another head and throws it, and they're laughing about with it and playing games. Come back to her, and she's not quite so sure doing is the right thing. And I think that was important for all of us, that scene, you know. But anyway, it may have gone over people's heads. Maybe people just want to see revenge. I don't know.
Well, it's fun.
It's nice
It's fun.
to have a little question like that here and there.
Yeah. The back to the sword here. Did you want to add a little bit of that fantasy element with the sword?
Yes, 100%. And I think the reason for that is I believe 100% in fact, you know, in the spirit world and strange things going on. We don't know everything. My career, I don't deserve what I have. I just don't.
Stop that, Jesse.
No. It's not false modesty. I know from whence I come. So there's a angel or whatever you call it, or something. My ancestors, the gods, someone has steered and kept me out of trouble along the way and put good fortune. Now I'm a greedy little bastard, so I've managed to take a hold of everything I can and use it to the best. That I take full credit for. But the opportunities that I've been given, the opportunities I've missed as well, have been presented to me and put in front of me. And I truly believe that our forces at work that are greater than our own personal, story, and we call it religion now. We call it Christianity or Islam or whatever you'd like to call it. But in those days, those were not. There were other names for it, and that's what they have. And I truly believe if you saw something that was questionable, humans are funny. You take it as if the other people in the room say, "Yeah, no, this is okay," it's okay. If you think of a cell phone, if you put 4 people or one person in a room with 20 people in there with cell phones, and that person had never seen a cell phone before, and those other 20 people are talking on it perfectly, randomly, and they put it in their back pocket, that one other person is not going to say anything. He's going, "That's an interesting, cool thing. I think I want one of those." He's not going to say, "Oh my God, how did that work? How does it, well, let me have a look at it. This is amazing," and scream and shout and make a fuss of it. He's just simply going to take it. And I wanted to show that, when she has that moment in the roundhouse, the Cranog, for the first time, where she says, "Give me my sword, I'm going." And the sword flies through the air and lands in her hand because the child has handed it to her. And she leaves. And Peter Franzen says, did anyone else see that? And they're like, "Oh, it happens all the time. Don't worry about it. It's just her." Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's the truth of it. That's what people are like. We don't question much.
Mm-hmm.
If it's happened to us, I bet if I asked you how a cell phone works, you probably couldn't explain it. But we use it all day long and we don't care. It's magic, because we know there's technology that well, you probably do know actually, but I don't. The fact is, we take so much for granted because everyone else is,
Right.
And I think I wanted to show that magic was like that for the longest time. People took it for granted. If the rest of the gang said it's fine, she's got that on her side. That's why we're following her. I also wanted to show why they were following her, because they believed that she had magic behind her as well. Now, she didn't have magic. It was the ghosts of these 2 kids that were with her, but for everyone else watching, it was magic, now, what do I believe in? What do you believe in? It's up to you to what you take away from the film at the end of the day, But yes, absolutely. The sword in and of itself carries some kind of a vibe, but the magic is in the fact that her belief that her 2 children are still alive manifests itself in a physical reality, And I think,
Gotcha.
To agree that, I don't know. It works for me.
Yeah. I was like, oh, he's put a little fantasy splice on there. I like that. Look, that's a great shot. Let me go back to that. Look at that. Both of them. Look at that. That's what's up.
Fun. So the trailer is being towed by a car, and I'm on the roof out of the sunroof of the car, filming backwards. And so, that was the actual chariot that was used in Gladiator.
Oh, nice.
Owned by Steve Dent, who did ride the horses with that, which is quite fun. So it has a rig on it that can be pulled by 2 horses, or then you take off the rig, you put another rig on it, it goes on the back of a car. So here it's being towed by the car, and we're filming everyone run through the park, which is quite fun to do. It's really,
nice.
In that moment, you get a taste of it. But and there's the other side of the church in Ipswich. Same night, by the way.
Wow, impressive.
That's Santa Clarita, and I'm one of the archers.
I love these shots at night.
Yeah, John is so good at that,
It's like it's haunting.
Yeah, he's become a magician. You know, I learned what he could do with smoke on Hell Hath No Fury. We'd never, you know, we were so up against all of that. It was the COVID film, you know, we've talked about it before in detail, but there was a lot of issues with technical aspects and day going. And John had showed me a technique where he puts a smoke wall up. It relies on there not being any wind, of course. He'd put a smoke wall up behind the actor, hit it with a lot of light, and it looks like the sky is light, and it's nighttime, it's midnight, you know, it's completely black. And you film the actor. You can do head and shoulders shots. You can't do wide angles, but you can do close-ups, and it looks almost like daytime, you know, a strange kind of overcast day. And it's saved us so many times. You don't want to do it much, as I say, because it starts to look a little weird and a little sort of, you know, stagey. But it's you know, it's magic, and he's able to do that. And we've now done it more times than I care to admit to. But it's a fun technique. But he's smoke. This shot here was very interesting. We had the smoke wall, and I was behind the Roman lines with 3 cameras, I think. We had all, you know, and we could hear the English chanting. And the first time they appeared through that smoke, it made all of the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. I could never get it a second time, and I should have filmed the rehearsal. And it was a big learning lesson for me: is don't, on these big shots, shoot the damn rehearsals. Don't screw around and wait. And it was so frustrating because the one that's in the film, the very next one, didn't have the same magic to it, and I wanted to chew my arm off. It's very upsetting. But yeah, you've shoot the rehearsals, man, and those big ones. That
Copy that.
Capture something at that moment that's just so. And since then, I have done, and I've come through a few times where it's been. I've thanked my lucky stars for little moments like this that didn't work. But yeah, sadly, it's not as good as it looked that first time I saw it. But
wow, so it actually looked better than this. That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at filmmaking 101 with Jesse V. Johnson. There you go.
Yeah. But then the other thing is maybe it just looked good because I'd never seen it before.
There you go.
But yeah, they hit quite hard. The only other time I saw a good hit like that was I did the Battle of Stamford Ferry in Lincoln, the Spielberg film. We had 2 weeks to prep for that. We trained 800 stuntmen extras and special ability extras to fight with bayonets, and we had the Union, who were African American, and we had the Confederates, who were all obviously Caucasian, white guys. And we had a scene. It'd been very difficult to find African American stunt guys that matched Spielberg's list of what he wanted. He wanted skinny afros. No one looks like they should have worked out. And at the time in LA, every single African American stuntman had bald head and looked extraordinarily muscular. And so we couldn't hire anyone. And we went all over the East Coast. There were people from Florida, from Pittsburgh, from Maryland, from, finally got all these guys together that worked for the quota, the description, skinny, afro hair, and, and not looking like they'd worked out, not looking like models, So we put all these guys together and they're all lined up. And I said, you have to charge the Confederate lines. You come down the hill and hit it hard and knock, they're on the edge of the water, try and knock them into the water. They're all linebackers and stunt guys. They're big guys and they're ready for you. Hit them hard, rolling and action. And the first time they ran down, put the brakes on and sort of tapped him. I'm like, guys, what's going on here? We went in and we said, look, this is Lincoln for Steven Spielberg. This is a film that you're going to show your grandchildren. And their grandchildren will say, this is the film that, my grandfather was a stuntman in. Hit hard for no other reason than the fact that you want to show the truth to what this story is and what came before and what came before that. And what, if you're American, what your ancestors went through. Let's do something. And we filmed the next take. We rolled on it with 4 cameras. Oh my God, it was a hit. Yeah, guys, Confederates flying up in the air with Confederate hats flying off and rubber guns going, spinning, pirouetting into the water.
Wow.
Guys came down and they're like, was that good? I'm like, that was perfect. And you okay, guys? And the stunt guys, of course, the Confederates, like, yeah, that's great. We love this stuff, But it was a really good hit. And we had a really good hit in Boudica that was like that reminded me of that. So that's why I bring that strange anecdote to bear.
Nice. Well, yeah, you get some good hits.
Yeah.
In Boudica for sure.
Sometimes you have to dig deep in these guys because they're not actors, they're stuntmen or they're extras.
Right.
Live a normal life as doing something else, and now they're dressed in barbarian's outfit charging towards a Roman line. You're like, no, you've got to hit this hard. This is important for my film. You come in here and you make impact. And I see your face. I see the wanton fury of revenge, every single one of you. And you give them a little speech and you see them go bored kind of guys wondering where the next sandwich or donut is coming from. You can see that little fire in their eyes. It doesn't always last very long. But your job as a director, or in many cases, just assistant director is doing it, is to get that going.
Nice.
When I first started out, I was hired predominantly for big extra days as an assistant director. Shawshank Redemption, Mr. Holland's Opus, which was a school with 200 people in it, and How to Make an American Quilt, The Birdcage, where we had all the dancers and big crowds. And they bring me in to do these big crowd days, which I really got a kick out of doing. It's fun to work out the mathematics the night before, how we put them through makeup, hair, wardrobe to have them set by the specific time. You'd have to don wardrobe with the walkie-talkie hidden inside the coat and get in there, and and then keep it creative and keep everyone interested. Try and give everyone a backstory, and it was a beautiful way to learn the craft of directing. So it's fun to do those kind of big.
Nice, yeah. Copy that. Learning as you go, improving on your craft, sir, and you're good at what you do, brother. That's why we are fans. That's why we are here talking about your films.
More years, I might actually have an idea how to do this.
You're just winging it. Fuck it. But yeah, man, I would love to talk to you about movies all day. But this man, that's right, Jesse V. Johnson is an extremely busy man, and we got to let him go. But thank you so much, sir, for coming back on the show, hanging out with your boy Preston. Hopefully, you can have Scott Adkins break my neck in a future movie.
Sure.
Fingers crossed for Debt Collectors 3. But really quick before we wrap it up, Chief of Station, I mean, I'm excited about this. Aaron Eckhart, Olga's coming back, and we have the amazing Daniel Bernhardt. We got to talk about this in the future, Jesse. When is this supposed to come out?
It's really, really good. I was hard on this one. Went to Budapest, worked with a fantastic team, really good producer, Steve Jones. Great. It's wonderful to bring Daniel into the mix, who I adore working with, obviously from Hell Hath No Fury as well. Alex Pettifer, who's an absolute superstar and really, really brilliant, very good in the new Guy Ritchie movie. Olga's very strong in this, but Aaron was the big discovery for me, and I just love him. I want to work with him again. I think we are going to work together again. He is a phenomenal, dedicated, disciplined, hard-nosed, professional. I just love those types. I just love people who love the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who enjoy what they're doing, want to do a really good job. There's not all these other distractions. You can see it in their eyes. Something. It's like, how do I do this the best way I possibly can? They want you there as a coach, but they come with ideas and suggestions, questions, and it's brilliant. He's up early. We talked every day to half an hour before work just to get in the groove, and he's like a machine. I loved working with him. Very intense. It's how I like to work. So
yeah, nice. Well, I'm really excited about this. Is it coming out in May, maybe?
I think so. Yeah, I was a huge fan of the Cold War era as a subject matter for movies. I grew up in that era. School kid, East and West Germany and spies and all that sort of thing. And I Ipcress File from Russia with Love, and all these kind of pictures from the 70s and 80s, and I just love them. And so we snuck a lot of that in there. Contemporary film, but still the ghosts of the Cold War are there. And it was wonderful shooting in Budapest. Wonderful crew, really, really good team. Biggest I've had. There's a great car chase in it, which I'm enormously proud of.
Yeah.
With a lot of car chases very early in my career.
Yeah.
So fun to come and do one that was pretty fun.
Oh, amazing. I can't wait to watch this. I cannot wait. Jesse, we got to bring you back, brother. When this comes out, we got to bring you back on the show and talk Chief of Station. That's right. But that's right. I got the axe back out. The axe is back out, baby. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Thumbnail, baby. Yeah, thumbnail. That's right. Y'all know what you need to do. That's right. Check out Boudica. It is on Amazon Prime. Check out One Ranger. Buy the Blu-ray. That's right. And also, I believe One Ranger is also on Tubi to watch for free. But check out Boudica. That's right. Watch it. Check it out on Netflix in the UK and on Amazon Prime. You will not be disappointed. That's right. Action, adventure, tragedy, revenge, and a good old bloody time, baby. That's how we do it. Check out Boudica, Queen of War. And also, hey, follow this legend over here. That's right. Check out the link in the description box below. Follow him on Instagram on his filmmaking journey. Support this man. That's right, because he represents us action and martial arts movie fans. He represents us. So we got to keep supporting him so he can make even bigger and even better films. That's right. We got to support Jesse, so make sure you follow him. And really quick, thumbs up for Boudica there from Brandon. He's giving the thumbs up there. Yes. Martial arts legend is watching. Chucky Curry. He says, thanks for sharing. Hey, we appreciate you. Thanks for watching. That's right. That's right. Oh, Tommy M, what's going on, brother? He says, great stuff. Opportunity knocks. We take it. Thanks for sharing, Jesse. Good to see Tommy M. Yeah, good to see. So thank all of you guys for watching. We're going to be talking more movies and doing some movie reviews tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Join me and director Billy Hanson. More special guests on the podcast next week. And Jesse, don't go anywhere, but I'll see you badasses on the next one. Take care, guys. Boudica, fuck them all. All right. Take care, guys.